Hello everyone, my name is Claudia Valenzuela. I'm Information and Financial Counselor for the Career Loans Program. We are going to discuss a very interesting topic that is titled Building Cross-Cultural Competence. So when you're thinking about cross-cultural competence, particularly in Canada, it's quite varied. And we have to start thinking about what culture is, right? So there are many definitions, but one that I really like is that culture is the way that we do things when nobody tells us what to do, and the way we communicate our thoughts, the way we perceive authority, the way we were raised, the environment we lived, and the biases that we bring. The food that you're used to, the customs, the folklore music, everything is part of what we call culture. So the key concepts that we're going to discuss in terms of visible and invisible differences are, first of all, generalizations versus stereotypes. What does it mean? The relationship between employees and managers, and how to communicate more effectively when a message is sent versus a message that is received, who adapts to whom. So we are going to discuss different situations, servicing cultural different clients when you are a manager or as an employee, as an employer. So it's very useful to give you awareness about that and how you manage cross-cultural conflict. So what is generalization? So generalization provides general characteristics based on cultural and social factors, while stereotypes present a fixed and inflexible image of a group. Generalizations recognize individual differences, while stereotypes ignore individual exceptions. So there are many situations where you generalize things. For instance, in certain cultures, time has a different concept. And I could say that in Mexico, I know that time is more flexible than in Canada. So I will not interpret the late arrival of one of my Mexican colleagues as disrespectful, as I understand that in general, that's how they see time. However, if I stereotype, I would say that Mexicans are always late. So you have to consider these different types of aspects and be mindful about that. When you are discussing and thinking about relationships between employees and employers, you have to think about the way you prefer for managers to give you instructions. So if you see the scale right now on the screen, think about where you see yourself, towards the left side of the screen or the right side of the screen. So the left side is more where you are looking for not so much of directions, or somewhere in between, and to the extreme that you don't need in major directions. You just need you feel comfortable with enough freedom. If you are on the right hand side, you feel more comfortable having more detailed instructions or very clear instructions from your manager. So those are situations that are key to consider. For example, when you have different types of challenges, and you receive instructions from a manager that you're not familiar, or even from a colleague, so then you have to see yourself and assess yourself where you are at in the picture, and understanding within the culture that you are at the moment. So depending on the type of environment that you're coming from, maybe you were used to have enough freedom, and all of the sudden you have a manager that is coming from a different culture where he always provided very specific instructions. So then you have to decide what to do next, right? So in order to communicate more effectively, it would be very good first, when people speak their first language, uh, Not necessarily is because they are not respectful of the people around them, but it's also that they have the need to blow off steam, and they feel comfortable with people that understand the same language. However, depending on the situations that you are, and if you're in a team meeting, of course, it's not polite to start talking on your own language with a colleague that is nearby while everybody else speaks English. So be mindful about that. And that's part of adapting to different situations. Don't ask people to repeat themselves, ask them to rephrase. So instead of saying, "What's that? What is it?" So then it would be very helpful if instead you said, "Oh, it would be very helpful if you rephrase it," or "Could you rephrase it in a different way?" Because you are putting the effort in understanding what is it that the other individual is trying to communicate. Always ask clarifying questions. It's always helpful to make sure that if you are not sure about it, particularly the first 2 or 3 months of your first job, you're not so sure how things are going. So make sure that first of all you have a notebook or somewhere where you can make notes, and based on the information that you gather from your colleagues, from your manager, if you have additional questions, so then you can address those. But don't keep repeating the same question on and on and on, because then you're going to be perceived as you didn't pay attention. Make sure that your communication is clear and concise, and avoid using complicated language, or using a lot of slangs, because people might not be familiar with that. The differences between receiving a message and sending a message is very important. And many times you probably remember situations where your message was sent with a different intention than it was received, maybe by one of your colleagues, and in the midst of I don't know, tight deadlines, you didn't come across the way you wanted. So perceptions in professional communication vary depending on your cultural background. Trust me, for sure, it is very different. And also the tone of the message that you're sending, and your body language, it says a lot as well. So it communicates more sometimes than words, right? So when you are thinking about then who adapts to whom when you're communicating in a new environment, and particularly in a Canadian environment, newcomers would think, well, I always been doing this for so many years and it's been effective and I never had issues, and now I'm coming in this new environment, all of the sudden I'm not making friends, or people are not responding to my comments. So what's going on, right? So it is an interesting situation, because you might think that who should adapt to the Canadian style of communication? Should be the newcomers that it needs to adapt, or should be Canadians to adapt to the newcomers situation? To be honest with you, it is almost like yes, you are coming to a new environment, and it's very important that you're aware of your surroundings and you embrace the culture. It is very important. Of course, you're not going to lose your identity on who you are. It's always important to be yourself, but at the same time, see what your surroundings are all about and adapt the best possible way. So for Canadians, they think that, well, you are welcome into our new country, so it's up to you to adapt. Okay, so make the effort of learning about the Canadian culture, about sports, about learning about the province where you are, learning about the businesses that are growing, learning about the different customs that are available. Enjoy what you see, embrace the Canadian winter, all these things that makes Canadians, and they do appreciate that. So Some of the tips that I could share is that awareness is 50% of the solution. And it is important, right? Because if you're not aware or self-aware of where you are and how you are acting or reacting, so then you may have some issues in the future. And it is important to have patience. Communication is not just about sending messages, but also the way they are received, as I mentioned. And when the impact you have does not match the impact that you want to have, you need to stop and clarify. You have to separate the impact from the intention. And negative emotions are always red flags, right? Because that means that there is a misinterpretation of the words or the things that you said. Even at times it's the way you look at a person and the other person will feel threatened, and you didn't know what you did, right? So when in doubt, always ask. And it's always good to address it right away. Don't wait for a few weeks along the way to discuss an uncomfortable situation. You will address it in private. You're not going to address it in a team or in a meeting or in front of everybody, but separately, as it is considered polite to do that way. Accept the fact that cultural differences create challenges and at the same time opportunities. And it's very good that you have awareness of the fact that cultural differences are everywhere, and that you need to expand your network of contacts to improve your communication, to get to know people, to understand the culture better. Expanding your network of contacts is not only for job search purposes, is for learning where you are, your surroundings, is in your professional and your private life. Even, if you have your kids that are going to specific training, and somebody's interested, share that information. Be helpful always, and don't expect to receive something in return, because otherwise it doesn't serve the purpose of expanding your network of contacts, and genuinely be yourself and be helpful to others. So when you're serving cultural different clients, as an employer, or if you are an employee, or you are with colleagues that are coming from different backgrounds all across the world. So it's always good to understand the egalitarian culture is more prominent in Canada than in many other countries. And hierarchical cultures are more common in other countries such as Philippines, Japan, or India, where they are very used to follow instructions from managers without questioning anything, or receiving specific directions from them, and following without a question. Egalitarian culture is a little bit more both ways, somewhere in between, and asking questions in a respectful way, but it's okay to do that. And people are treated equally. In both cases, new clients are accountable to understand and immerse themselves in the egalitarian culture of Canada. So if you're coming from a hierarchical culture where you were the boss and everybody heard your instructions, and you use a very authoritarian tone of voice, so then you have to adjust to a new environment in Canada, and you have to come with a different tone of voice, and appreciating that men and women are at the same level, and the way that you communicate is a bit different. Okay. Egalitarian cultures also look into a nice balance between your technical skills and your soft skills. And while coming from other cultures, hierarchical cultures, the main focus is in technical skills. 90% is in technical skills and 10% soft skills. So you see quite a difference, and that's when you may have a shock of cultures or misunderstanding why you are not able to get the job that you're looking for. If you have all the technical skills required, you are quite competent, you have a lot of successes throughout your career, yet you are lacking a bit in establishing good interpersonal connections or presenting yourself in a positive way to your colleagues, and you need to adjust in that part. When you're managing cross-cultural conflict, the right thing in one culture group may be the wrong thing to do in another cultural group. And again, it's always good to learn how different one group might be from the other. And part of that is asking friends from other cultures how you do things, how your family and have done it all this time, how different it is from Canada. So then with a good intention of learning, people are open to share and never judge that one culture is better than the other, is different. However, in the Canadian culture, adapting to this culture is extremely important. Professional interactions actually create conflict here or everywhere else in the world. And doesn't matter where you go, as long as you're working in a business environment, people think in a different way, right? So I could be very creative, very innovative, come up with many good ideas, but at the end, if my manager thinks otherwise, I have to listen and respect and discuss it in a healthy way, as we say. We see others as obstacles many times to reaching our professional objectives. And yes, my manager is totally different than me. So what's going on? How I'm gonna move ahead and move up the ladder if this guy doesn't allow me to do what I'm planning to do? Well, it's different. So you need to understand where the other person is coming from, always thinking about for the benefit of the organization, the program, the project that you're running, and or following, working together with your other colleagues. Conflicts are more likely to occur in multicultural organizations because of the nature of different cultures, and always will happen. And again, is building into those positive experience and those challenging experience as well that will make things interesting and a healthy work environment. That's the ultimate goal. So some of the tips that I can share with you is that it's important to anticipate what's going to happen and don't generalize your understanding. So always say, oh, I know that I'm going to be dealing with individuals coming from different countries, and I want to learn as much as possible. So let me prepare myself the best I can. Also prevent, seek first to understand before trying to be understood. Okay, again, along the lines of what I just said, how these things are done under their perspective, and see how I can try to understand, identify and understand your counterpart's value system coming from different places around the world. Find a middle point of comfort, a win-win solution, and compromise, because it's important. It's not only my way or the highway, right? It's always somewhere in the middle. So even though I may not agree, but I have other points that I value from my counterpart's opinion. So then you have to compromise in a healthy way and resolve. It helps you to identify the triggers of your counterparts and make sure that you come with solutions with a healthy way of communicating your thoughts, of perhaps, having a good conversation in private, and see how you can improve and make it better next time. So if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out through www.careerloans.ca. Feel free also to send me an email at info.sk@careerloans.ca, or give me a call at 1-800 number is 1-888-558-0282. It's been a pleasure sharing information with you, and I hope that you found this information helpful, and I'll be happy to connect with you as I said. Thank you and have a great day.